Welcome back, you animals, to another episode of the interview of Argu. Once again, it's a solo episode. You know the drill. We just came off finishing the Cam episode, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. If you haven't seen it yet, please do go check it out. So much valuable insight there, so much wisdom coming from Cam, and I really appreciated having him on. We have some really good guests coming on this week. I'm so excited for you guys to see all of them. So excited to record. And yeah, it's starting to get a little bit of form now, the podcast. It's trying to find the stride with the routine and how to go about things. So it's all looking pretty good. But yeah, today, unfortunately, no guest, just me. And while I was researching for this episode, a lot of the stuff that got recommended to me, and when I say got recommended to me, I mean through like my social media algorithms, through like my conversations with people and things of that nature. The topic of loneliness kept popping up and up and up, and I kept finding papers on loneliness and articles and so on. So I decided to do a kind of a whole episode dedicated to loneliness. I do think January can be a bit of a lonely time. Well, right at the beginning of the year can be a bit of a lonely time for people. You're just coming off of December, where there's a lot of community and family gatherings and whatnot, and then going back into work. And it can be a bit overwhelming. And I think particularly towards Valentine's Day, single people feel a lot more lonely. It's a reminder to them. I guess for people in relationships, doesn't apply as much, but definitely for people that are single, even, beginning of the year is a time when a lot of people are moving to new cities, don't really know anybody, starting new jobs. So it can be a very lonely period for people. So I thought it'd be fitting to talk about loneliness for a little bit, talk about what the statistics and psychology says about it, and what can you do to combat loneliness. So I actually want to start off with a really interesting paper that I found coming out of the University of Adelaide. It was about an honors student in psychology doing his thesis. The honors student has elected to remain anonymous. All of his names are blurred out on the publication, but don't know why. I think it was fantastic. Now, I do understand it's just an honors thesis. It's not the pinnacle of research, but I think he did a fantastic job, or he/she did a fantastic job with the paper. And I want to discuss a little bit, but do take it with a pinch of salt. It is just an honors thesis. It is a meta-analysis, so it's just basically a summary of a bunch of other papers. I also want to add the University of Adelaide is quite well known for its psychology department, so there's decent reason to assume that this paper was looked at with a fine mesh comb, and that the findings here are significant. So what did the researcher do? Well, the researcher took 16 observational papers that span across multiple countries, including the US, UK, Europe, and even Asia, and which encompassed 22,000 people. So 22,000 people across multiple demographics is quite a strong sample size to get some results from. Because if you think about it, the smaller your research sample is and the less diverse it is, the more likely you are to have the correlation or causation effect, or the less likely you are to have generalizations that really apply to people. But with this large sample size and this wide demographics, it's fair to assume that some of this is generalizable, and intuitively a lot of it does seem generalizable. So what he found, or what did the researcher find? So there's a whole bunch of talking points to go over. I'm going to summarize some of the most significant parts of it and some of the more concerning parts of it as well. He found positive correlation of depression and loneliness ranging from 0.3 to 0.45, depending on whether you're a man or a woman. 0.45 correlation is insane. If you think about that, that means if you hold all other factors stable, then loneliness accounts for 45% of the variance that you see in depression from person to person. This means that if you include things like income, health, socioeconomic status, age, all those things do not contribute as heavily to explain the variance in depression as loneliness does. Not only did they control for factors like age and income, but surprisingly, they also controlled for relationship status, meaning whether you were single or in a relationship, it did not matter. 45% of your variance, or up to 45% of your variance, could have been explained with how lonely you feel. So this isn't just people feeling lonely in the sense that they have no romantic partner. This is people feeling lonely in the sense that they have no community. And it also kind of separates the idea that a girlfriend or boyfriend or a significant other will reduce a lot of your loneliness. In fact, the data suggests that that's not true. So to summarize, people who are young doing financially well, and in relationships were still likely to show depressive symptoms if they were feeling lonely. Even more concerning is eventually they started controlling for depression and trying to see the correlation between loneliness and suicidal thoughts. And even when accounting for depressive symptoms, there was still positive correlation between loneliness and suicidal thoughts. So meaning even if you took two depressed people, one was lonely and one was not, the lonely one was more likely to have suicidal thoughts. If you took two happy people and you surveyed them, and one was lonely and one was not, you'd be more likely to find suicidal tendencies in the person that was lonely. Now, there's a misconception, I think, that depression is a proxy for loneliness and so on. I do think the two are heavily correlated with each other, but I don't think that they are proxies per se. In the sense that I've seen many people who are happy and content with themselves, but still feel incredibly lonely. Loneliness should be viewed as its own problem to deal with and not something that's tied to depression. And you hear that kind of advice from a lot of people where it says you have to be happy by yourself before you can be happy around others. The data, at least from this study, does not suggest that. I also don't believe that anecdotally that's true. I've seen many people who are happy by themselves, content by themselves, but still feel immense loneliness. And this includes people that are in community or people that are already surrounded by others. They can still feel significant loneliness. Here's one of the more surprising parts of this paper as well. It was found that women were more likely to report loneliness and more likely to report greater magnitudes of loneliness than men, but men were more likely to have severe effects from it. And there might be a bit of reporter bias in this. For those of you that don't know what reporter bias is essentially like follows. If you're surveyed on the street or you're interviewed on the street, say it's one of those Instagram channels where a person has a mic and comes and asks you questions, and they ask you what's more important, looks or intelligence, you're more likely to say intelligence, not necessarily because you believe it, but because you know this is going to be reported to people and you don't want to signal that you're shallow. So there might be a bit of reporter bias in this, and men are just less likely to admit that they're lonely. But I do think it is completely possible that men do just attach more significance to loneliness. And what I mean by this is when a man is lonely, he's more likely to take it as an indictment on himself instead of an indictment of his circumstances. Whereas women, I think, don't blame themselves for loneliness as much as men, but they do experience more of it. Which also means that women aren't as vocal about the loneliness than men are. Feels like right now men are extremely vocal about the loneliness. You see the loneliness epidemic posts everywhere. And it might just be the case as because it affects them more negatively. And whether that's societal, genetic, evolutionary, who knows? I'm not here to explain the causes of it. I'm just here to give the observations I've found. I think the other thing that attributes to this men feeling loneliness more heavily, or rather having more adverse effects from loneliness, might also have to do with the nature of how men and women make friends. Because I've seen women more open to accepting people into their group and more open to making friends of women they don't know that I see in men. It feels like men are more tending to bond into close circles and not really allow other people in, and after a certain point stop accepting people into their friend groups. It's that old joke of, guys make one friend in high school and they just ride out of them forever. Well, women continually make friends, and that's probably another effect, or another contributing factor to the more adverse effects of loneliness in men, is because they view it as a difficult challenge to make friends, while women just view it as it's a circumstance and eventually they'll make it friends. And I also just think men are less likely to actually reach out to other men to be friends. I think it's viewed as like a sign of weakness or a sign of shame. Or women are more likely to be like, hey, can I come with you guys on this weekend? Or do you want to do something? Men will rather wait to be invited, but if you have two men that are lonely waiting for each other to invite each other, it's never going to happen. Okay, so what's the conclusions of this study? Or at least what conclusions did I draw from it? Now, I'll admit, there's a little bit of bias here. I am a man. I tend to lean towards the men's results of this. So, first thing is, men feel the effects of loneliness much harder. Men have a tougher time reaching out and helping others, or even helping themselves. And it's a bigger predictor for suicidal thoughts than unemployment and health risks. So, what can be done? So, firstly, the data suggests that getting into a romantic relationship isn't necessarily the solution. It could help, but you're just as likely to feel lonely, left out, isolated in a relationship than out of a relationship. So if you have this impression that a girl is going to come save your life or a partner is going to come save your life, then you're under the wrong impression and you actually have things wrong. But that's also somewhat of a good thing, because I think most men are willing to admit that they're likely to find friends and they are likely to find love. And it may seem less daunting to go make friends to cure your loneliness than it does to go find a girlfriend to cure your loneliness. Secondly, the study suggests you don't need breadth. The signs of loneliness and adverse effects from loneliness start decreasing from a minimum of 2 friends onwards. So as long as you have 2 ride or die homies, you start to feel better and you're less likely to have suicidal thoughts and depression as a result from loneliness. Thirdly, I think we can start removing the stigma that loneliness is a sign of weakness. The fact that loneliness and depression are not viewed as proxies of each other in the study suggests that loneliness is a byproduct of situations, not byproduct of who you are. So take a deep breath, realize that you're not the reason you're lonely, and it's circumstantial, and there are things within your control that you can do to change this. And just remember, you have needs as a person. Community is one of those needs. So you're not depressed, you're not a problem because you don't have community. It just means your community needs aren't being met and you have to do something about it. But what can you do about it? So number one, as I just suggested, find 2 or 3 people that you really connect with. Why you connect with them, how you connect with them, it doesn't matter. Just find 2 or 3, lock in on those 2 or 3. 2, build periodical and ritualized relationships. So what does that mean? This study also found that men are more likely to stay friends with someone if they have a shared goal, while women are more likely to stay friends with someone if they have a shared interest. And anecdotally, that also makes sense. Think about men that start businesses together, men that go to the gym together, men that are, taking it even back to high school and a high school football team together. Those people had shared goals. And through those shared goals, they build a much stronger connection. Gym partners are the best example of this. You both have the goal of getting jacked. You both see each other regularly. And you're both moving towards that goal together. And gym partners tend to be the closest of friends. So if you're a man, find someone with similar goals as you. Find someone that wants to start a podcast with you. Find someone that wants to write a book with you, start a business with you, run a marathon with you. Find some hobby that you both enjoy, where you both have a common goal, and routinely work together towards that goal, and you'll start building a good connection with that person. Thirdly, I think be kind to other people, man. I know that I preach a lot about you are the average of your 5 closest friends. And some people might take that as, well, that means everyone around me has to be amazing. But sometimes all someone needs to become the best version of themselves is someone else to believe in them first. Who knows? You can have maybe 4 really good friends and there's 1/5 guy who you see he's lonely and he needs some help. Bring him in. Believe in him. Let him feel welcome. And slowly start to watch him become the person that he was meant to be. And then he'll bring up the average eventually. But we can't keep on going about locking out other people of our groups and not accepting other people into our social circles and our communities. And then once we're in that similar situation, feel helpless. Be the change you want to see in the world. So if you know someone that's struggling with community, someone struggling with loneliness, let them in. And finally, be consistent. Keep on trying. You met 10 people that you try to be friends with and it didn't go well. So what? Doesn't mean you're not going to have any friends. You tried 3 different communities and not one of them worked out. So what? Try more. You have to keep collecting data. The second you stop collecting data is the second that your study is done. If your study is done, you can't change the outcomes. So if you've only collected data up until 10 people and all 10 people failed, all bad news for you. Then that study is always going to be a failure. But if you keep collecting data until the study is a success, then it's a different story. And I think some of you might be hearing this and thinking, it's such a silver spoon problem to worry about how many friends you have. And I think we as a society have kind of done this thing where we've promoted the idea of being a self-made man, an entrepreneur, a hustler. Do everything by yourself. You don't need anybody. You're strong and independent. And it's quite ironic. Back in ancient Greece, they had the word philia, which was just the word for love, but when it came to friendship, they have a specific word for the love you feel for friends. And it was considered a fundamental part of the society. There's no possession greater than a good and faithful friend. Socrates. The antidote for 50 enemies is 1 friend. Aristotle. Friends are companions on a journey who ought to aid each other to preserve in the road to a happier life. Pythagoras. Now, I'll admit, I'm just as surprised as you guys. I didn't know Pythagoras was into psychology like that. I thought he was just a triangle guy. But I find it so funny because Socrates lived in about 400 BC, Aristotle in about 300 BC, and Pythagoras nearly lived in 600 BC. So these are guys from almost 3,000 years ago talking about the value of friendship. So even as far back as ancient times, we knew friends were important to us, but now we've kind of made society around do everything yourself, isolate yourself, work from home, be your own boss. and we've removed that sense of community and friendship. There's a study recently done called Friendship Importance Around the World. There's a study coming from the University of Columbia in New York. The study went across 99 different countries and across 323,000 participants. Controlling for all the environmental variables, friendship importance predicted health and well-being, regardless of economic status, age, and culture. There's another study that you can find in Springer Nature, which is a well-respected publication, called The Value of Social Networks for Men, Concurrent and Prospective Associations with Psychology and Well-Being. Now, this study was a bit smaller. It was only 523 people and in Australia, but they found that time spent with friends correlated heavily with environmental mastery and purpose in life. And that was significant, purpose in life. People often think that you just find your purpose in isolation. This may be suggesting that you actually find your purpose in people. So we have studies and we have ancient philosophers talking about how important friends are, and yet we've decided to neglect that in our society. And I think it once again comes to the breadth versus depth approach to life that's more popular now. We think having more friends and meeting more people and getting to know more people will result in a better chance of finding greater people, which isn't necessarily true. And also, people often neglect that means you also increase your chance of finding really bad people and really unhealthy people for your life. And I think what is true is you see the best in people when you get to know them deeply, when you get to know the depth of that person. That's when the true characteristics shine. That's when the best parts of them shine. So why do we keep searching wide for important people in our lives and start searching in depth for important people? There's so much more value in having 4 or 5 people that truly understand you and the depths of you as a person than it is having 20 people that loosely and roughly understand you. You want to have people that you can confide in, people who support you, people that help you mourn in your losses, people who pray for you, people who want to be around you, people who value you. You want to have those kind of people in your life. But that also begs the question, what type of people should you have in your life? Firstly, the sad news is if most of your friends are alcoholics, clock into work just to clock out and live for the weekend, you're probably going to be in the same boat. None of your friends prioritize their physical health, mental health, or spiritual well-being. You probably won't either. So when picking your friends, pick people that have similar values to you. Pick people that are on the same trajectory as you. Pick people whose advice you would want to listen to. I once heard a great quote that said, stop listening to advice from people that don't have what you want. So find friends that have what you want, and then try and get close to them. Another important factor, find people close to you. And I know that one kind of sucks because sometimes that one's not in our control. And I'm not saying that you should abandon anybody that moves over an hour away from you. No, like there's value in having long distance friends, lifelong friends. But I am saying you should try and emphasize people who are close to you physically or geographically close to you. You should have friends that you can drive 15 minutes away to and see face to face. And the reason for that is I think holding space for people is very important. And that's not something that can easily be done over a call. And what does holding space mean? If you want to see a great example of holding space, you can go watch Sean Strickland on the Theo Von podcast. There's a moment in the podcast where Sean Strickland is talking about his dad and how abusive his father was and how he actually used to fear for his life as a child growing up. And he starts to crack up. And, Sean Strickland is known as the machismo, do-it-yourself, strong guy type. And he starts to cry, and Theo Von just says, hey man, we don't have to talk about it, we can just sit here for a little bit. And they just sit there in silence for a moment. And you can see Sean feel better and work through it and release something that he hasn't released in a long time. I think that's super important. I think we kind of have made this emphasis on trying to fix people's problems for them. I don't think most people want their problems fixed for them. I think most people want the authority and responsibility that comes with solving their own problems and the satisfaction that comes with solving their own problems. So I don't think people want advice when they're feeling down. I think in reality what happens is people want to be heard. They want to be seen. They just want someone present. I think most of the time, just sitting there with someone when they're going through something tough is important. I once heard this amazing take on the old saying of "call me if you need something." Someone's family member just passed away, and you say, "Call me if you need something." Let me know if I can do anything for you. The intention's good, but really what you're saying to the person is the ball's in your court to ask for help. The ball's in your court to ask for support. A much better way to go about it is tell the person, hey, I'm going to come over now and sit with you for a little bit. Is that okay with you? Because then you're putting the onus on you want to be there for the person. They don't feel alone. They don't feel like they have to reach out to go get help. They just feel helped. So I think stuff like that's really important, and you only do stuff like that if you're in close proximity. Stuff like just giving a hug. Hug makes you feel a million times better. Hug makes you feel warm. Hug releases oxytocin. You can't hug your phone. So find friends that are within close proximity to you. Thirdly, choose friends who want to see you win. And this one's a tough one because a lot of people act like they want to see you win. A lot of people act like they want to see you do well. Very few people mean it. Very few people actually support your dreams. Most people are jealous. Most people don't have the courage and ambition to follow their dreams. So when they see someone else doing it, they don't like it. But you have to find people that are comfortable enough in themselves and confident enough in themselves that are just happy to see you succeed. It's rare, it's difficult, and you won't know it until it's too late. But try and prioritize the people that you see are happy for you when you win. So most importantly, how do you make these friends? Follow your interests, man. Like I said, chase like-minded people. If you love fitness, join a High Rocks club. And I know some of you are being like, oh, but I already go to the gym. Gym's not a social place. High Rocks is a social place. Join a High Rocks club. If you love reading, join a book club. It's a social place. You love business and entrepreneurship, go to networking events or go play golf. Basically the same thing. Go to these events, go to these clubs, find 2 or 3 people that you like, and after seeing them a couple times, you extend the offer. Stop waiting for people to offer to you to be included on things. Because here's the thing, they've already made their friends. Most people already have their groups. Most people are already happy with their groups. They don't need to add anyone to it. So if you want to be included on it, you have to extend the offer. If you invite people to enough things, they'll start inviting you there. And if your effort isn't being reciprocated, stop giving it to that person. There'll be many other people to give your effort towards. And I think be more direct of it. Say, hey man, I like where your head is at. I'd love to get to know you better and be friends with you. That's simple. If we make this assumption that seems very cringy or that seems very needy or whatever, but I promise you there's so many friendships that don't get formed just because both people are just waiting for the other one to put in the first effort. So stop waiting for other people. You know better now. Put in the effort first yourself. And if it's not reciprocated, so what? Move on. What have you lost? You've lost nothing. You've actually gained something. You've made the sample size of people that you have to probe on whether or not they want to be friends smaller. You made the sample size of possible friends smaller, which means you're closer to finding the real one. And make it easy, you know. Don't make it within the first 5 minutes of meeting somebody. See them 2 or 3, 4 times, and then make it something chill. Maybe a coffee, maybe a quick walk, maybe a phone call or text, or be like, hey man, I read something I think you'd find interesting, or I saw something I think you'd like. People love that. People appreciate that. You love that. You appreciate that. So give it towards other people as well. And I think if you put in that effort, you'll find a lot of people that you get along with and that you appreciate. I think your life will drastically improve. And now for the one more often associated with loneliness, dating and dating apps. This is one I've struggled with myself for quite a while, and it's felt like for at least 3 or 4 years now that the dating market has been absolutely cooked. And honestly, I was starting to think it's just me, but I'm glad to see that it's not. Let's take a look into some numbers quickly. Forbes released an amazing study recently. Oh, not study, but I guess article. And I know it's Forbes and take it with a pinch of salt, but a lot of what they found is believable, so I'm going to give it anyways. So they released an article titled Dating Statistics and Facts about midway through last year, so July 2025. And it was written by a woman named Emily Fairs. I'll link it for you guys in the description. I'll link all these studies and videos and things I referred to in the show description so you guys can check it out for yourselves. And what the article did was surveyed 8,000 people across dating apps and asked them some questions, and here's what they found. Also, I want to point out that this study was not just done in the US, this was done in the UK, Australia, and Canada. So it's a wide variety of places. Obviously, it's a bit Western focused, but I think most of us are Western focused, so that's all right. The biggest takeaway I got from this article is if you think it's just you, fantastic news, it's not just you. Everyone's struggling right now. Out of the 8,000 people, 91% of men said they were currently unhappy with the dating market. 94% of women said they were unhappy with the dating market. So it's not just men feeling it. women are apparently even more unhappy with dating, but I'll get into that a little bit later because I think there's a bit of a contradiction of interests. So 94% of people, call it roughly 92% of people were unhappy with the dating market. Out of this 8,000 people, 53% aged 18 and 68% aged 34 said they were looking for a long-term relationship. And I want to point out two things because that's significant. So it means that despite everyone, almost everybody being unhappy with the dating market, only 63 or only at most 68% of people were looking for serious relationships. So it means there's a large set of people, call it what you want, 20, 30, 15% of people who are looking to fuck around and not take things seriously, and they're still unhappy with the dating market. And they might be contributing to the other half being unhappy. So this contradiction of interest is probably one of the reasons why there's a large amount of unhappiness in the dating market. Secondly, I want to emphasize that the older group is a particularly interesting one, because if you think about it, the older you go in these surveys, the more condensed your pool gets of people. Because most people by age 34 have found a partner, have gotten married. So the ones remaining are the ones really yearning for it. Which means there should be a huge discrepancy between the amount of people who are 34 looking for romantic relationships and the amount of people that are 18 looking for romantic relationships. Because when you're 18, you still have your whole life ahead of you. You don't feel rushed. There's no pressure. A lot of people around you aren't in long-term relationships. So you should feel more inclined to be like, it's okay, I'll wait a little bit. But the discrepancy isn't that large, which signals a few things. Maybe this generation takes relationships more serious than the previous generation, and maybe the generation just before us didn't take relationships as seriously, and now they're trying to regret it as the years go on. The survey also pointed something out that I found ludicrous. It said like the average cost of dating monthly for single people is $300 US. $300 US. That's ridiculous. That's more money than people are putting away to their pension every single month. Which tells me two things. One, dating is too expensive, and two, people are valuing dating more than a pension. People really want it. That was just a quick tangent, because I always think that the amount that we're paying for dates is crazy. Like, I don't understand why coffee and chat isn't good enough for a first date. But that may be my very stingy, very frugal self-talking. The survey then listed some things that they believe are positive, but I actually don't view them in a positive light. So it says 73% of people think that romantic love lasts forever. A little bit expected. You'd actually expect slightly higher. 91% are unhappy with dating, 73% think that can last forever. If you are unhappy with dating and you think it doesn't last forever, then you've already kind of have a conflict of interest going on. Secondly, 69%, nice, said they believed in destiny, and 51% think there's a perfect match out there for them. And that's the part I think is a bad thing. I don't know how we got into this part of society where we all just assume there's someone out there for everybody. Like, take spirituality out of it. I think people assume that everybody has a person, everyone's guaranteed love, just because it's a wholesome thing. Logically, you're not actually guaranteed love. Theologically, most of the time, you're not guaranteed love. Statistically, you're not guaranteed love. Yet most people, almost all people, operate under the assumption that there is someone. And this is while dating is at all-time low. Could you imagine this statistic 20, 30 years ago? It would have probably been in the 90s. Everyone probably thought they were finding love. And I want to emphasize that you don't deserve love. Not in the sense of like you can never have it, but it's not guaranteed to you. It's not a right. It's not something you just get for existing. And the issue of viewing it as something that is something you just get for existing is you don't put emphasis on it. You don't put effort into it. You don't take risks. You don't work on your attachment styles, your habits. You just think, the right person it'll work out for. It's not true. If you are extremely toxic, commitment issues, never learned how to live with somebody, never learned how to care for somebody, then you're going to suck. Even if it's the right person, even if it's the best possible match for you, if you've never worked on love, you're going to not love them correctly. And I know right now all my Christian friends are watching this and like screaming at their phones, no, but Augu, God has made somebody for everybody. If I told you I was praying to God for a new car and you saw me not save a single cent of my money to buy that car, you call me a hypocrite. So I don't think that just believing that God has someone out there for you means that you're excluded from actually working on your relationship status and how you handle relationships and how you go about relationships. Oh, hello Kiki. Kiki wants to say hi. So I have a lot more opinions on this one, but I'll wrap it up with this. Love isn't guaranteed to you. You have to go out there and earn it. Love isn't guaranteed to you. You have to give yourself chances to find love. Secondly, if you ask people that are married, or even ask people that are happily married, let's say, they're going to tell you that love doesn't feel like that spark, that this person was always going to be the one for me. They're going to tell you that was work. They're going to tell you that they put effort into making someone the perfect person. So I think as soon as you eradicate the idea that there is only one perfect person out there for you, that you have a destiny, that you have fate, and start realizing that you have to make it work, you can be more willing to put in the effort that it takes to have a healthy relationship. So I guess in summary, there isn't the one, you make someone the one. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when dating. Now, onto some more general statistics. And this one's bad news if you're a man. So somehow, don't ask me how this works. Population statistics always get really chopped and dicey, and I never know how people actually, like logically sometimes it don't make sense. And this is one of those cases where it says 64% of men are single, or rather 63% of men are single, and only 34% of women are single. How that happens, I don't know. That implies that some men are dating multiple women, which I hope that's not a standard thing. And also how those percentages nearly add up to 100% is also beyond me, so don't ask. I'm just giving you what's been reported. But that does mean something. If you are a man, you have less options than women, at least statistically speaking. So what does that mean? If you're a guy, you gotta up your game. It means that for every girl that you're interested in, she has at least 3 men to choose from. So you gotta be in the top 33%. You have to be a better bachelor or a better candidate for this person than 2 other people. Good news is that that's not as hard as it sounds. Like, most people don't try. Most people don't put effort into themselves. And most people aren't signaling, or most people aren't working on the things that matter when it comes to dating, and when it comes to being a good person for that matter. So what are some important factors when it comes to dating? So there was an American survey that was done, and now this one is biased to America, and I think you'll see that a little bit in the statistics, but it found that 90% of singles say that sexual chemistry is important to them in a relationship, and that 72% said that they could determine sexual chemistry within the first 4 dates. Now that's a tricky one, because 90% also means that it's not just men that find sexual chemistry important, but women as well. And I think that's something that's been common knowledge for a few years now, that we've kind of just shifted away from thinking that it's just men that care about sex and sexual chemistry, and now it is more recognized that both parties care about it. But the bigger issue is that one's kind of hard to work on in isolation, right? If your problem is that you don't have a job and don't have ambition, you can work on that outside of dating and outside of relationships. You can't really work on sexual chemistry on your own. And another important thing is sexual chemistry is more than just sex. Sexual chemistry is attraction to each other, sexual chemistry is touching, sexual chemistry is closeness to one another. It's a lot of different things outside of just sex. So the advice on this is fail fast. Like, if you're bad at this, go on dates. Know that they might not go well, that this might be a deal breaker for some people, but experiment a little bit with it. And I'm not saying sexually harass people, obviously, like respect people's boundaries and whatnot, but on a date, like, try touching their arm, or try sitting closer to them at the restaurant, or try doing things like this to kind of gauge that chemistry. Make a naughty joke every now and then, nothing inappropriate, but something that you can kind of get the gauge of what is it like to have sexual chemistry with someone. And rather start smaller than bigger and work your way up, because you'd rather for lack of a better word, don't sexually harass them and then turn it down. Rather be too meek and shy about it and work your way back up. And some of you might be going, that doesn't matter, that comes naturally with the right person. Maybe it just works out with the right person, but if 90% of people say it's important to them, and they might be underreporting on that, and they say they can find it within the first 4 dates, then do you really want to leave up to chance? Be flirty, be physical, get good at being attractive in that sense, and respect boundaries, but try. Do a little bit of effort on that side. Okay, so what else was important? Well, there's another study done by an organization called the SRSS, and they found the following stats. Now, this comes from surveying people from dating apps, but they found that when it comes to sexual preferences, 66% of women, compared to 49% of men, care about having similar family values. And this is an important one, because I know that sounds quite obvious to you, but I think that something you have to note is, to have shared opinions on family values, you have to have opinions on family values. Men don't think about that stuff too often. Obviously, women care about it a lot. 2 in 3 women care about it. So if you're a man, think about it. Get what your opinion on family matters. Do you want kids or not? Do you want a big family? Are you very close with your family? Do you spend a lot of time with your family? Get your opinions on it, and then find people with similar opinions. Okay, next one. 23% of men and 32% of women said that they want the partners to be as physically attractive as them. Obviously, there's a bit of reporting bias here. Like I said earlier, you're less likely to admit these things in a report. So there might be a larger proportion of men that care about physical attractiveness, but that also means there's probably a larger proportion of women that care about physical attractiveness. So if you're a man, work out, dress well, take care of yourself, groom, hygiene, find out your style, put effort into how you look. 18% of men and 27% of women care about their partner being as educated as them. That means if you're a man, women really care if you're as smart as them, and as well educated as them. So put in some effort, do some courses, get a good degree, be informally educated as well, read up on stuff, be in the know of things, try to be an intelligent and worldly person. And this one might sting a little bit. So 6% of men and 18% of women care about how much money their partner makes and want their partner to make as much money as they do. So that means women are 3 times more likely to care about how much money you make than you are to care about how much money they make. And that one's obvious. People still want, on a basic level, if you think about it, women don't necessarily want you to take care of themselves. Women don't necessarily want you to take care of them. They want you to be capable of taking care of yourself if all else goes wrong. And I want to highlight that because if it's 6% of men that care about how much money you make and 18% of women, that means that 1 in 5 women care about how much money you make. Only 1 in 25 men care about how much money you make. So if you're a man, put some effort in, get a good job, start a side hustle, do something to increase your financial stability. Always remember that the old saying, get your money up, not your funny up. So what are the key takeaways for dating? Dating sucks right now for everybody. Nobody's having a good time. Dating apps in particular suck, with 63% of people on dating apps saying they're unhappy with the experience. Women, unfortunately, do have more options than men. People are in general a little bit disillusioned with the idea that there's someone out there for everybody and that there's a lot of fate towards dating. So what should you do? As I always say, try to be the best version of yourself. Focus on that first. Accept that dating is a lot of effort, and dating is hard, and that you need to have grace for people. And you also need to accept, I heard a brilliant saying the other day that said, saying yes to the amazing life that you're going to live is saying no to all the amazing lives you could have had. There's not going to be one person out there that's better than all the rest. Maybe there is, but not by a wide margin. And better in what way? You know, in reality, there's going to be a lot of really great candidates, and you just have to make a choice and decide that you're okay with that. Decide that it doesn't matter all the people you'll never get to date, all the people you'll never get to know, and just be happy with the one you chose. And that's life. You're not going to be able to do everything. For Michael Jordan to be the best basketball player ever, he had to say no to being a decent baseball player. For LeBron James to say yes to being the second best basketball player ever, he had to say no to an amazing football career. So you have to say no to a lot of amazing things. And you have to be okay with the decision. You have to make it work. So think well about the decision, but don't overthink it. And don't look for something perfect. Look for good enough and then work from there. And what do the statistics say? If you're a guy, 1 in 3 women are single. That means 1 in 6 of them will be looking for a relationship. That means if you're above average in things, that means if you're better than average, if you approach 18 girls, you have a pretty good chance of one of them working out. 18 girls is 1.5 a month for a year. You can do 1.5 people a month. Conversely, if you are a woman, 2 in 3 men are single. So 3 in 6 guys will most likely be looking for a relationship. So if you are better than average, approaching at least 6 guys gives you a better than average chance of finding someone. If you want to find someone that's in the top 33% of men, that means one of the higher echelons of people, then you only have to approach 18 people. In a year, that's 1.5 a month. So go out there, be the best version of yourself and try. So that's going to be it from you guys. Let me know what you thought on this video. Let me know if you want to see more of these topic-centered podcasts. Please leave a like, subscribe, follow for more, listen to the video on Spotify, share this with some friends. Let me know, what did you find interesting? Do you agree with my takes? Do you agree with the data? Do you have a personal background statistics and you can see the flaws in the thinking? Open to discussion. Leave it in the comments, message me. I'm always up for a chat. If you want to come onto the show to talk about things like this, remember, all are invited and all are welcome. Reach out to me personally on any of our platforms or fill in the link in the description. And until next time, guys, have a wonderful day.